Hello, doctor. My name is Liang, and my fellow groupmates are Alif Iqmal, Hasman, and Kawi Nesha. And today we are going to present on Bhopal disaster. So the disaster have its own background history. It happened on the night of 2 to 3 December 1984, and this company is handled by Union Carbide India Limited, which is called UCIL. And this disaster is notorious for its MIC gas leakage, which the MIC means methyl isocyanate. Over 500,000 people living near the plant is being affected and got injured or even deaths. So during the aftermath, the death toll was 2,259, and in 1991, it was reported that 3,928 deaths have been officially certified. A government affidavit in 2006 stated that the leak caused almost 600,000 injuries, including 38,000 temporary partial injuries and approximately 3,900 severely and permanently disabled injuries. A total of 36 wards were marked by the authorities as being gas affected, affecting a population of 520,000. So the storyline of the disaster is it all begins on the night of 2 December 1984, when most of the plant MIC rated safety system is malfunctioned. It cannot be used, and many pipes and lines were in poor condition. And furthermore, the plant was losing money that time because they cannot earn anything that time. And the upper management is also very greedy. They tend to save money. They tend to prioritize saving money than any safety precaution. So, for the initiation and propagation of the disaster, initially in the late evening hours, water backflow into the tank. We can say the MIC reactor. So I will say reactor. While the water is trying to unclog it, and after that, the pressure rise from 2 psi to 10 psi due to the exothermic reaction of the water and the MIC gas. So the worker initially thought that this is a small deal, so they didn't care about it. After that, after a while, they found out that there is a leak. There is a leak at 11:45 p.m. as they smell a stench of the MIC gas. So they decided to solve this problem after a tea break. So after 5 minutes of the pre-break, suddenly the reaction happened in the reaction tank, which causes a critical state, and the temperature and pressure rise beyond the level which is which is uncontrollable. And one of the employee witnessed the concealed step above the tank crack as emergency relief valve burst open, and the pressure in the tank increased to 55 psi. Meanwhile, the MIC gas outburst into the atmosphere. So now let's proceed to the aftermath of the Bhopal disaster. So as the MIC gas, 30 tons of the MIC gas escaped to atmosphere, and you can imagine that when it comes to the village area, how dangerous it will be. Okay. One of the employees triggered the plant alarm system at 12:50 a.m. and unfortunately, another employee switched off the outer alarm, which was discoupled from the inner alarm since 1982 to prevent alarming the public around the factory over tiny leaks. They don't want to let the public to know the tiny leaks because they thought this is not a big deal, but it is a big deal. It is a big deal for us lah. So after that, it will proceed to the news has been gone to the police by a town inspector, as the town inspector called the police about how the residents smell the stench of the MIC gas, and the UCSL manager told the police that everything was cool, everything was under control. But you know, right, the disaster, no, the leakage is not a small deal anymore because it keep on giving out the toxic gas to the environment. So after that, the MIC gas leak petered out at approximately 2 a.m. So it petered out already. After that, 15 minutes later, the public silent only sound. This public after the public siren sound, the UCSL employee walked to the police center and told to the police that the leak has been plugged, but the leak is not plugged. Actually, the leak is not plugged, but the gas flow finished. The gas flow finished, but the leak is not plugged. So they assume that the leak is plugged because there is no gas coming out from the tank already. So next, okay, now we are going to talk about the 3 types of hazards. One is material hazards, second is energy hazards, and the third is the chemical reaction hazards. So I will going to talk about the energy hazards. So there are There are mechanical energy, thermal energy, chemical energy, electrical energy, kinetic energy, hydraulic energy, and explosive energy. So as for mechanical energy, any mechanical parts that can cause physical injuries, that is called hazards, energy hazard, mechanical energy hazards. And as for thermal energy, this is because of the high temperature. MIC reactor causes overwhelming thermal radiation. Chemical reaction because of the poisonous MIC gas, which will destroy our lungs, infected our lungs, and the extremely flammable MIC gas will cause the burn out of the factory of the plant. Electrical energy is caused by the malfunctioning of the fuse and capacitor, lead to outbreak of the high voltage output. Pneumatic energy is a compressed gas which has very high pressure, may be caused by reaction. So this is caused by the exothermic reaction between the gas, MIC gas, and the water. So after that is hydraulic energy, which is also caused by the reaction between water, but it's caused by the backflow of water to lead to the reaction of water and MIC gas. After that is explosion energy, but the explosion energy does not occur in this scene, but we assume that it will occur when the condition is uncontrollable. It will cause a big explosion when the condition is become very dangerous.
Hello everyone. Next, I will continue with the process hazard. Secondly, it is the material hazards for methyl isocyanate. From the pictograms, we can see that methyl isocyanate is flammable, harmful, and also has health hazard. Basically, methyl isocyanates are colorless liquid with strong and sharp odor that can cause tears. There are two types of hazards, which are physical and health hazards. Methyl isocyanates are flammable liquids that can cause skin irritation and corrosion. They can also affect the eyes and cause cancers in the meanwhile. There are many activities can be conducted to prevent the exposure of methyl isocyanate. First aid measures, handling and storage and exposure to control. It is advised to storage this methyl isocyanate in a cool condition, while to avoid the exposure, we should wear personal protective equipments, respiratory filter device, gloves, and also tightly sealed goggles. Thirdly is the chemical interaction hazards, where in this plant, the reaction between the methyl isocyanate with water, which was undesirable. This reaction has caused a chemical reaction which is exothermic. They release a huge amount of heat that cause increase in the pressure. Due to the increase in the pressure valve burst and about 30 tons of MIC escaped from the tank. Next, let us discuss about the cause of this disaster. Firstly, it is the insufficient workforce. Reduction of the training qualification level and also education standard has caused the employee to have less knowledge to fix the problem in the plant. The graph shows that there is a reduction of number of persons in each category of the Bhopal plant. Next, it is a diminished design specification of the plant. This design has caused the plant to fail. The management approached the cost-cutting alternative by reducing the number of safety devices in the plant. In fact, there were many features were not working at the night of the accidents. This table shows the comparison between the MIC plant design in West Virginia and also Bhopal. From the table, we can see that many safety devices were reduced in number and there were no emergency call existed in the Bhopal plant. Thirdly is the management decision. The management decision played a huge cost that lead to this disaster. The management decided to shut down the refrigeration unit to save the power, and they were also switched off the silence that caused the neighborhoods were not aware with the explosion or the release of the methyl isocyanate. There were lack of incident notification during this accident, and the plant were being operated outside the parameters. The MIC tank had 42 tons of liquid, where by rules the amount of MIC liquid stored in a tank should not be exceed 30 tons. Next, it is the deficient maintenance of the plant. Plant operator failed to move some of the MIC in the problem tank to the spare tank because the spare tank were not empty. Careless during the water washing. They did not check related line. They did not disconnect various lines and they did not place spill blinds during the washing routine. Malfunctioning of the pressure control valve. A jumper line connected to a relief valve heater and a pressure vent heater. Safety devices were not repaired. The safety devices that were not repaired are such as flare tower, which were turned off, waiting for the maintenance. Temperature sensor and the alarm for the MIC storage tank were out of the service for almost 4 years. And lastly, it is the ignorance of the employers. Supervisor ignored the initial warning of the leakage. MIC storage tank gauge indicates of pressure has risen 5 times in an hour. Besides, operator spotted a drip of liquid and some yellowish white gases in the same area. However, the supervisor would like to have tea first before checking the leak. The supervisor also assumed that the leakage were probably a water leak. These are the main causes that's lead to this disaster.
Hi, I'm Alif Iqmal. Now I will present to you about action taken after mine. And for the first one, subsequent legal action. Legal proceeding involving the United Carbide Corporation, US and Indian governments, local Bhopal authorities and disaster victims began. The Indian government passed the Bhopal Gas Leak Act in March 1985. On 17 April 1985, Federal District Court judge suggested that UCC requires to provide between 5 to 10 million US dollar as preparation to help the injured. The UCC offered a 5 million US dollar grant fund 2 years later, but the Indian government rejected the offer. Finally, in an out-of-court settlement reached in February 1989, Union Carbide agreed to pay US $470 million for damage caused in the Bhopal disaster. Second, post-settlement activity. In 1991, the local Bhopal authorities claims Warren Anderson, which the CEO of UCC, did a crime that carries 10 years in prison. In this case, he was named as the chief defendant, but he was failed to attend the court hearing. In September 2006, the Welfare Commission for Bhopal Gas Victims announced that all original compensation claims and revised petition being cleared. In June 2010, 7 former employees of UC, in which all of them is local workers, were convicted of causing death by negligence. The third is long-term action. There are 3 of them: healthcare, environmental, and occupational and habitation. So, for healthcare, Bhopal Memorial Hospital and Research Center was established and obliged to give free care for survivors for 8 years. 8 mini units were started and free healthcare for gas victims were being offered. Sabbanna Trust is a charitable trust that gives modern as well as Ayurvedic treatments to gas victims free of charge. And for the environmental, Government of Madhya Pradesh presented a scheme for environment improvement of water supply, and Supreme Court directed the Union and Madhya Pradesh governments to take immediate steps for disposal of toxic waste inside the factory within 6 months. So for the occupational and habitation, 152 of the planned 200 work sheds were built, and in 2000 by MP government, system were partially functioning. 50,000 persons have alternatively jobs, and that less than 100 gas victims had found regular employment under the government schemes. And lastly, the government planned 24686 flats in 2 and 4-story buildings.
Hey, hi, my name is Mohammed Azman. Next, I will present about the public perceptions toward the Bhopal disaster. First is hazardous site location. The outdated industrial location theories have placed the production facility close to either dwelling areas or markets, regardless of the environmental conditions. So, one combination of industry were established in close proximity. Because of that, this was the main reason for Bhopal disaster, in which the industry was located near a thickly populated area and the victims were too high. The incident can be prevented in the future by relocation the industries from the populated areas to reduce the chance of public affliction and casualty from hazardous accidents and explosions. Next is contamination in soil, water, and air. Various organizations fighting for gas leak survivors have been seeking proper medical care, adequate compensation, and cleaning of the groundwater and soil which became contaminated after the incident. Environmental awareness and activism in India increased significantly. The Environment Protection Act was passed in 1986, creating the Ministry of Environment and Forest and strengthening India's commitment to the environment. So, under the new act, this ministry was given overall responsibility for administering and enforcing environmental law and policies. Next is, this industry has worst industrial management system. The safety infrastructures are kept at a poor level. There will be loss of people life in this fiercely competitive global industrial environment. The industrial disaster of Bhopal had worse management, maintenance, and non-compliance of industrial safety rules. Various acts and rules were passed after the Bhopal disaster in all the countries. So the example of acts first Bhopal Gas Leak Disaster Act 1985. Next is the Environment Protection Act 1986, and lastly is the Factories Act 1987. And lastly is this industry have poor risk or hazard assessment procedures and practice. Poor risk assessment practice in toxic facilities, so that they will be failure to perceive the gravity of the situation after the trigger event. This disaster paved a way to reliability, availability, maintainability, and safety criterion importance to follow the effective management techniques.
In conclusion, in our own perception to this Bhopal disaster, poverty is one of the main cause because last time, many citizens are very poor. They tend to find work at the plant. Um, uh, After they have been hired, they have been asked to do something they did not know how to do because those kind of thing, those kind of tasks, is not what they're expertise on. So next, the main cause is also include the arrogance of the management department because they are so much concerned in the money saving process than the maintenance services, like the lacking of personal protective equipment and maintenance of a system in the plant causing more injuries and even death. They didn't even care about the safety precautions, they just care about the money issue. And furthermore, greeds bring destruction. If greediness in oneself can be concerned about oneself only and only concerned about money issue. They cannot think of another thing else except for themselves. Therefore, to treat this kind of thing, we need to find a good leader. We need to find a good leader, a far vision leader to move on the right track. Because a good leader will lead the team and understand their team very well. Just like what we have to portray in the Bhopal disaster, like the UCIL manager have to be a good leader in order to prevent this Bhopal disaster to occur again. So to further improve this process, self-realization is very important because if you know your own mistakes, you can change it. So it can eventually demolish your greediness. So next, we are going to share a video, but since we're lacking of time, this is actually a video of a movie of a Bhopal disaster. It named Bhopal, A Prayer of a Rain. This is only a trailer, but if you want to see, you can watch it in YouTube since we don't have any more time to spare for this. So our group will discuss until here. Thank you, Doctor, for your listening. Thank you all.